Hey everybody, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools Q&A edition, where we address questions from the general public about tools, the trades, and anything tool related. So sit back and let's get right to it. All right, the first question is from Lorenzo. Lorenzo wants to know what safety precautions he should take when working on his electrical panel. That's a good question, Lorenzo, because safety questions are always the best questions. Safety first, you know how that goes. So the first thing you want to do, Lorenzo, is to make sure that your feet are dry and you're wearing rubber-soled shoes. You don't want to be standing barefoot on the ground or standing on any metal surface like a metal ladder or something. That's a recipe for disaster. Even with rubber-soled shoes, you'll feel a shock from a 120-volt circuit, but that won't necessarily kill you. If you don't have shoes on and you're standing on wet ground like wet grass or a damp surface, that same 120-volt circuit can kill you. And being electrocuted isn't easy to get out of once it happens, because the electricity will cause you to hold on to the source of the voltage because of muscle contraction, so you can't let go. And it will eventually cause your heart to stop. So, number one, wear rubber-soled shoes and wear rubber gloves as well. And if the ground is damp, lay some dry wood down, like a dry pallet or something, if that's available. The next thing you want to do is to shut off the power. And you can do that by flipping the circuit breaker or unscrewing the fuse if it's a screw-in type fuse. Even after doing that, you still want to test all the wires in the box just to make sure, right? Because some wires may still be active. So you just want to make sure that you don't just check the wires that you're working on. You want to check all the wires in the box with your voltage tester. Then you want to put a sign on the box warning people or letting people know not to touch the box, man at work or woman at work, because somebody may be upset that the power isn't on, not knowing you're working on the panel, and they'll come and turn the power back on when you're not there. You may have went to your truck to get a tool or something like that, or a part. So you want to put a sign up and make sure that the tools that you're using have rubber handles, and always grip them by the handle. Don't wear any watches or jewelry. And if you need a ladder, make sure it's a fiberglass or wood ladder, not aluminum. Also, Lorenzo, you want to make sure that your voltage testers are maintained and checked regularly, all right? You want to make sure that the light comes on when they're supposed to, because the last thing you want to do is use a voltage tester that does not work. That could mean, serious injury. So make sure you maintain them, test them regularly, make sure the light comes on when they're supposed to, and you can test it on a live circuit and do it that way. So once again, Lorenzo, thanks for the question. Appreciate it. So the next question is from Renee. Renee wants to know if paint thinners are dangerous, and if so, what are some safer alternatives? Yes, Renee, paint thinners can be very dangerous because the fumes from paint thinners can build up in a room very quickly, especially if that room isn't ventilated properly. So paint thinner is a petroleum-based solvent, and it's known by different names. Some of the more common ones are acetone, turpentine, toluene, and others. But all of these are not good to inhale or even get on your skin or in your eyes. Some of the short-term effects of paint thinner exposure is, get ready, dizziness, headaches, shortness of breath, nausea, hallucinations, confusion, loss of consciousness, and skin, eye, or respiratory system irritation. That's just the result of short-term exposure. Long-term exposure, as you probably guessed, is even worse. Muscle weakness, depression, bone marrow damage, pneumonia, chronic kidney infection, cardiorespiratory, renal, and central nervous system damage, and ultimately even death. It's also highly flammable, so you want to make sure that you dispose of it properly. That doesn't just mean the can or container that it's in, but also the rags or brushes or anything you used to apply it as well. So Renee, yes, fortunately there are alternatives to traditional paint thinners, so let's look at some. Okay, so this may be a surprise to you guys, But depending on the type of paint you want to thin, water is good for thinning latex or acrylic paint. But make sure that you add the water after you pour the paint in the bucket. It's also best to use room temperature water. If not, faucet water will do as well. Vinegar is good for thinning oil-based paints. Straight vinegar is recommended because other vinegars can have a pigment, and that would cause discoloration in your paint. Baby oil is also good for thinning oil-based paints, but be aware that adding an oil to an oil can increase the shininess or sheen of the paint, and also the paint may take longer to dry. Same with vinegar. Some baby oils have pigment, so watch out for those. You can also use vegetable oil or sunflower oil for oil paints and isopropyl alcohol for latex paints. But don't use too much alcohol because it will dull the paint. Try not to mix oil-based thinners to latex paint or mix water-based thinners to oil-based paints, and you should be fine. All right, Renee, thanks for the question. Appreciate that. Next question is from Rob. Rob asks, what's the difference between an angle grinder and a cutoff tool? Well, Rob, for one, an angle grinder is more powerful than a cutoff tool, which means they're better for cutting through or shaping large pieces of metal. It's not that good for detail work, and you need both hands to operate it. They're usually larger than cutoff tools as well. Cutoff tools, on the other hand, like I said, are usually smaller. They have less power, and you can't add any extra attachments like you can with an angle grinder. Angle grinders are very versatile. They're good for cutting thick metal and other materials like tile and brick. Cutoff tools are good for smaller pieces where the metal isn't that thick, and they're really only good for cutting metal. And you only need one hand to operate a cutoff tool. Okay, Rob, I hope that helped. Thanks for the question. Okay, the last question is from Angela, and Angela asks, what is a jigsaw? Is it a saber saw or a scroll saw? I've read about it and I'm still confused. Are they the same thing? Angela, you're not the only one that asked that question. Matter of fact, in doing the research, I found out myself that they're all pretty much the same thing, and they refer to a mechanism that has a saw blade that reciprocates back and forth that you can cut shapes, with out of wood or whatever, right? So they're pretty much the same thing, if you ask me. The names have evolved over time, whereas jigsaw is really the name used for all of those mechanisms. So they kind of morphed into the jigsaw, what we know as the jigsaw today. So I hope that helps. And thank you, Angela, for the question. Okay, everybody, thanks again for tuning in to the Caliber 8 Tools Q&A edition, where we answer your questions about tools, the trades, DIY, and tool-related activities. If you have any questions you'd like answered on the upcoming episodes, leave it in the comments, as well as any additional comments you want to make on today's episode. So don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and share buttons. And you can find us on Instagram at caliber8.tools as well. Take care, guys.